My storage on my phone said that I have 52 hours of recording space to do. It's not going to be a 52-hour class, but then I put in the title for the class, and then it said 51 hours. I don't know why. But tonight's class is going to be to the merit of the shliach of the Rebbe, Rabbi Tzvi Kogan, Tzvi Hakayin ben Etel. He should be found safe, alive, and safe and sound, and in good health. And we should have only good news from here on out. Okay, let's start with the topic of tonight. I'm not going to tell you what it is. We're just going to start learning, and we'll see where we go. So first book on the table, literally, is Gemara, Maseches Chagiga, Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. Okay, where is it over here? Yes, there's an interesting piece of Gemara over here that that there was a couple of sages back and forth. They had an interesting discussion. One said to the other, "Ligmerlan mar ma'aseh merkava." Let the master let the master teach us ma'aseh merkava. The I don't know how you say ma'aseh merkava in English. How do you translate ma'aseh merkava in English?
The incident of the royal chariot.
The incident of the royal chariot, the vision of Yechezkel, of Ezekiel, which is a profound, much not understood passages in the book of Yechezkel. It's basically a whole bunch of the works of Kabbalah, and usually summed up as Ma'aseh Merkava to some extent. So let him teach us Ma'aseh Merkava. Amar lahu, he said to them, Agmaruli Ma'aseh Bereshis. In turn, you should teach me Ma'aseh Bereshis, which is the works of creation, which is also associated with Kabbalah. I might be oversimplifying the terms over here, but just bear with me. Bos da agamrun, after he taught them, Amrulei, they said to him, Nu ligmerun mar Ma'aseh Merkava. They're going to teach us Ma'aseh Merkava. Amar lahu, he said to them, Tanina buhu. We learned about the teachings of Ma'aseh Merkava. Dvash v'cholov tachas l'sheinech, that honey and milk underneath your tongue. What does this mean? The Chachamim tell us. It's a pasuk. The Chachamim tell us, Devarim hamasukin midvash v'cholov yu tachas l'sheincha. That things that are sweeter than milk and honey and milk, should be kept underneath your tongue. They shouldn't come out. And then another teaching, Rabbi Abo Omar Mehacha. Rabbi Abo, he learned it from a different verse. It says Kvasim l'levushecha. I looked it up. It said something like the lambs will be for you. They'll provide clothing for you. So the Chachamim interpret this pasuk to mean Devarim shehin kivshayne shalaylam yutachas levushcha. That the things that are kivshayne shalaylam, which Rashi means says it means sisrei shalaylam, the secrets of the world, they should be kept underneath your garment. In other words, what's going on here is the Gemara is implying, or saying straight out, that the secrets of Torah, what's called Ma'aseh Merkava, Ma'aseh Bereshis, these are secrets. They have to be kept secret. They have to be kept under your tongue. They have to be kept under your garment. They can't be let out. That's why the Gemara goes a whole. This is based off a mission over here on 2 pages ago on Daf Yud Aleph regarding the restrictions of teaching these parts of Torah to students. It has to be to 2 students, to 1 student really. And there's a very limited amount, and it was only for very special people. They had to be Mavin. What is it? Lashon over here. Chacham it has to be somebody who's a chacham and he would understand something on his own without being told and without having to ask questions. Okay, so that's the Gemara. Now, this idea is not brought in Shulchan Aruch, but it is brought in Rambam, Rambam's Mishnah Torah, in the Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, the laws of the foundations of the Torah, which is right at the beginning of Rambam. The first 2 prakim actually of Rambam is all these topics. He goes on relatively at length explaining them. He talks about Malachim, he talks about this, he talks about that, he talks about Hashem's unity, all bunch of important stuff. And at the end of the chapter 2, Perek Beis, what does he end off with? Halach Yud Aleph. He says, Dvarim elu shamarnu, these things that we said, be'inyan zeh, regarding this topic, b'shnei prakim elu, and these 2 prakim, k'moy tipa min hayam, they're like a drop of the ocean. It's a drop of the ocean from what is really necessary to explain this topic. And the explanation of all the principles that are in these 2 chapters is called Ma'aseh Merkava, as what we just said in the Gemara. Then Halacha Yud Beis, he's actually going to paraphrase the Gemara more or less and bring it down as Halacha L'maisa as a practical law. He says, Tzivu Chachamim HaRishonim, the original sages commanded that you should only expound on these topics to one person. You shouldn't have a class of 50 people. You should have a class of one individual. And what kind of person? It should be somebody who's a chacham and he understands on his own with his own knowledge and his own wisdom. And afterwards, you give him the basic ideas. I guess that's more or less what a translation is. Hopefully that was correct. You give him a little shmitchik, a little tiny taste of the matter at hand. And he understands on his own, the rest of it. And he will know the end of the matter and its depth. These matters are very, very deep. Not every mind is able to handle them and to process them. Regarding these topics, Shlomo HaMelech said in his wisdom, by way of analogy, the way we said that the lambs will provide for you clothing. The Chachamim tell us that the meaning of this analogy is matters that are the mystery, the secret of the world. They should be for your garment. They should be for you alone. You should not expound about them and teach them in public. Regarding these teachings, it says also, they should be for you alone, not for strangers with you. In the third pasuk, it says, it should be honey and milk underneath your tongue. This is what the Chachamim explained. What this means, that matters that are like honey and milk should be underneath your tongue, which is interesting. The Gemara actually said things that are sweeter than honey and milk should be underneath your tongue, and the Rambam leaves out the word sweeter. I'm sure that was on purpose, but we're not getting to that. Okay, so in other words, the secrets of the Torah are not supposed to be public. That's what it sounds like. It's supposed to be private information for private individuals, for very unique individuals, very lofty, holy, wise individuals. Okay. Here's the issue. Ready for the issue? The issue is the Arizal. Chas v'shalom. The Arizal is not the issue, but something the Arizal said is going to cause us some misunderstanding over here. What did the Arizal say? I believe this is first written in Eitz Chaim from the Arizal, but all the Lubavitchers know it from Tanya. In Tanya, in the fourth section of Tanya Igeres HaKodesh, there's a long letter from the Alter Rebbe, Siman Chavav. Did I say that? Siman Chavav in Igeres HaKodesh, where the Alter Rebbe goes on a long thing talking about Kabbalah, the teachings of Kabbalah. And he quotes a whole long passage from the Zohar, and he starts unloading questions onto this piece of Zohar, for 2 pages over here. So, in the beginning of his questions on this passage in the Zohar, he throws in this line. Where is it over here? There. Okamasham Hariz, like the Arizal had said, the davka bedoris elu hacharim, that specifically in these later recent generations, mutar umitzvah legalois zois hachachma. It is permitted, and it is a commandment, it is a mitzvah to reveal this wisdom. And he contrasts it with the previous generations. Not in previous generations, not in the earlier generations. So the Arizal says that the game has changed. That currently in our day and age, not only is it okay to teach these teachings, it's actually you have to. It's a mitzvah. Why? I thought they have to stay hidden. That the pasuk says that the Chachamim explained that it has to stay hidden. It's something that's supposed to be tachas l'shoncha, supposed to be under your tongue. It's supposed to be tachas levushcha, it's supposed to be under your garment. You're not supposed to let it out. You're supposed to teach it to certain individuals in private. What's going on over here? How could this change? How could the rule change? Halacha doesn't change. It says something in halacha, then it changes. It doesn't change. So the good news is, the Rebbe addressed this question. There's a sicha from the Rebbe. It's a Yutes Kislev sicha. Yutes Kislev is the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus, and it's coming up in a little less than a month. The Rebbe actually addresses this particular question. So I'm going to read inside. This is for those who are looking up in Svarim. It's in Likutei Sichos Chelik Lamed. The sicha starts on page 170. I'm reading from page 171. So here's the Rebbe. It says like this: V'yuvan zeh behektim biur divrei Harizal. So this, the question that the Rebbe asked in the beginning of the Sikha, which I'll actually bring up in a moment, will be understood by first prefacing, explaining the words of the Arizal, which we just read, that it's recent, in these recent generations specifically, it is permitted and it's a mitzvah to reveal this wisdom. And the Rebbe quotes the Tanya, that even though that in earlier generations the wisdom of Kabbalah was hidden and concealed from all the Talmidei Chachamim except for unique special individuals, and even so it was in private, it wasn't in public, like it says in the Gemara, which we just learned. Many of the, from my understanding, many of the Tanoim, the times of the Gemara and the Mishnah, they weren't aware of Kabbalah. They didn't learn it. They didn't. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, for sure, he was the author of the Zohar. He definitely was. He was the source. Seemingly, here's the question: since the Chachamim instructed that the matters that are the secrets of the world, they should be kept underneath your garment. And according to the law of the Gemara, there are many conditions and limitations in how you're supposed to reveal this wisdom. And this is the way it was ruled in halacha in Rambam, like we just read. How has it become permitted in the recent generations to reveal this wisdom? What happened? And the amount of this wisdom that has been revealed since the time of the Arizal is insane. Like the amount of Kabbalah that's been taught, the amount of especially Chassidus, which makes Kabbalah, one of the things Chassidus does, it makes Kabbalah digestible and relatable and understandable. What changed? So the answer the Rebbe is going to give is actually going to help address a different question also, which is why the Rebbe is bringing this in here. The question that is going to be asked is, just to add some more flavor to this class tonight, there is a well-known story that I'm not going to get into the whole story of Yutas Kislev. We have to have a farbrengen about that. I can't just squeeze it into 3 minutes. But just to sum the story quickly, the Alter Rebbe was falsely accused of rebellious acts against the Russian government and the Tsarist government. And the reason why he was accused of these things is because there was those who wanted the Alter Rebbe to get arrested so that he should stop teaching Chassidus. And he was in prison for 53 days. And the corresponding, the Alter Rebbe said this, corresponding to the 53 chapters of Tanya. And during his stay in this jail, and in Yutas Kislev is the day he was released, miraculously released, and that's the day that we celebrate to the highest degree every year. So during his stay in the prison, we have a tradition that the Alter Rebbe was visited by two visitors, the Baal Shem Tov and the Mizitch Magid, who had passed away many years earlier. And he asked them, what did I do to deserve this imprisonment? What is being asked of me? What do they want from me? They in heaven, Shemayim. And they answered him that there was an accusation put against you, that you're saying so much Chassidus and so openly. So he asked them, when I come out of here, should I stop teaching Chassidus? And they answered him, since you've already started, don't stop. And on the contrary, you should actually teach more than what you were doing till now. That's the gist of the story. In other words, the imprisonment of the Alter Rebbe physically was actually a byproduct of an accusation in heaven, in Shemayim, against him. Because in Shemayim there was an accusation against the Alter Rebbe teaching too much Chassidus, therefore down here in this world he was arrested. And his release from prison was the green light in Shemayim saying, not only can you continue teaching Chassidus, you should teach much more than you were until now. Here's the big issue. Here's the question the Rebbe asks. There was already an accusation against Chassidus being taught a few years earlier. And it was defended, and it was good to go. His green light was given. And the one who defended it was the Alter Rebbe himself. What was the story? I think it was Rabbi Pinchas Karitzer. He was a Talmud of the Alter Rebbe, of the Mizitch Magid, and he ideologically, he was a student of he was a big tzaddik. He was a student of the Mizrach Magid, but from my understanding, he didn't agree with a certain aspect of the way that his Rebbe was teaching Chassidus, which was very, relatively broadly. And he was always concerned about this. And he was walking outside the Mizrach Magid's shul in the courtyard, and he saw a piece of paper lying on the ground. He said, "What's this?" He picked it up, and he sees it's a paper that somebody had written words of Chassidus on. And he got very, very upset. He got very, very upset. Now, when me and you get upset, okay, we get upset. When a tzaddik gets upset, it's a big deal, and that's scary news. So he took the piece of paper and he went inside the shul and he was going to go to the Mizrach Magid and put forth his complaint. The Alter Rebbe was there. And the Alter Rebbe was the Alter Rebbe. So he looked at Pinchas Karatzer, he looked at the piece of paper, he knew exactly what was going on. He came over to Pinchas Karatzer and he started telling him a mashal. This is the famous mashal that we all know, and if you don't know it, I'm going to say it anyway. If you know it, I'm going to say it anyway. If you don't know it, you'll learn something new. A famous mashal. The Alter Rebbe went on at length. There was a king, he had an only child, he was a prince, he was crown prince, and he became very ill, this prince. Very, very ill, deathly ill. You know the story. If you know the story, touch your nose. And he brought all the biggest doctors and to come and heal his son, and nothing was working. All the medicines, everything. It was just not having any effect on the child. So everyone's at a loss, and his sickness was getting worse and worse. Finally, he brought in a particular doctor, and the doctor said, he examined him, and he said, "I don't think there's anything I can do. I have one suggestion, but I can't guarantee it'll actually work. But it's basically impossible to do." Like, what is it? He said there's a certain type of special gem, special jewel, that if you were to find this jewel, and you were to crush it into a dust, into a powder, very expensive gem, and you mix it with water, and you pour some into the lips of the prince, it might enter his mouth. He might go down. It might go into his, into his. The doctor here can explain more how the drinking works, but and it might heal him. So they looked around. Where is this special gem? Where could they find this special gem? This very unique gem, and they found it. Here's the issue: the gem was the crown. What's it called? The crown jewel in the crown of the king. It was the most important gem in the entire kingdom. So the king, without blinking an eyelid, he said, "Take my crown, take the gem out, and crush it." They said, "Your Majesty, this is the kingdom. Like the way they used to work back then. They used to pass the crown down from father to son. Without the crown, there's no kingdom. There's nothing." So he said, more something along the lines of, "If there's no one to take over me, then what's the crown worth? If I don't have a son, then it's worthless." So he said, "Take the crown, take the gem, crush it, and mix it with water." So at this point, the son is almost gone. They take the crown, they break the crown, they take the gem out, they crush it, they mix it with water, they pour it to the son's lips, and they hope a drop gets in, and it heals him. That was the Alter Rebbe finished that. Pinchas Karatzer heard that, he calmed down. The idea he was trying to convey was that the spiritual what's that the machine called in the hospital, EKG monitor? What's it called? The thing that measures the heartbeat?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that what it's called?
EKG.
EKG. So like the EKG for the Jewish people's spiritual life force was almost completely gone. Whatever a bad EKG looks like, it looked like that.
Flat.
Maybe it was like a slight murmur, but it was very, very bad, very, very bad. And to save the life of the Jewish people, you had to break the crown jewel. You have to crush it and dilute it and make it accessible. That is the teachings of Chassidus. So yeah, things might spill out into the street. Might not be the right respectful attitude, behavior with the teachings of Chassidus, and it's not correct. It's not appropriate that it should end up in the street. But as long as a drop goes into the mouth of the crown prince, it's worth it. Let's say that it's the same thing. The whole story, say it in different words. There was an accusation against Chassidus, against the teachings of Chassidus being taught so openly, and it was defended, and the green light was given to continue teaching. That was the story in a nutshell. Why is there another accusation against Chassidus? What changed? A number of years later, the Alter Rebbe was arrested. In Shemayim, looking down, they're saying, "Oh, we got to put a stop to this." What's going on over here?
Well,
It was already accused. It was already defended. The green light was given. Why is it being accused again? Why is it being attacked again?
if I'm not mistaken, wasn't the leader of the Misnagdim at the time the Vilna Gaon?
Yeah.
So he's the one who made this accusation. So he's another. I mean, he didn't know at the time what it entailed, but he was at the head of this movement. So that's another big name that has a claim.
That's a whole topic unto itself. It's gonna. I don't want to get sidetracked with that. We are bringing up a good point. So let's address the original question. Okay. So this is what the question on the table. When you go on YouTube, when I put this on YouTube afterwards, you're going to see how can we learn Chassidus. That's going to be in the class. How can we learn Chassidus? How are we allowed to learn Chassidus? Gemara says, Rambam says you can't. This has to be secret. So hear this, okay? I'm not going to read it inside. It's going to take too long. The Nukud is like this. Kabbalah, Chassidus, is a part of Torah. It's a part of Torah. The same much, the Gemara is part of Torah, the same much, the Chumash is part of Torah, Midrash is part of Torah, Kabbalah, Zohar, Chassidus, Tanya, it's all part of Torah. Okay? And every single part of Torah is what we say, Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe Meirasha Kehilas Yaakov, is an inheritance to the people, to the congregation of Yaakov. It's an inheritance for every single Jew. Every single person, every single Jew is required to learn every single part of Torah as it's ruled in the laws of Talmud Torah. That means that there's limitations on learning the secrets of Torah, the Kabbalah, is not that inherently these teachings can't be taught. That these things can't remain, they have to remain hidden. No. It's just depending on the circumstances. So back in the day, in times of the Gemara, the Mishnah, you had to be somebody special. That was the circumstance. In our day and age, we need Chassidus, we need Kabbalah, we need these teachings in order to live as Jews. Without it, we can't. It's just not possible. That's why Chassidus is introduced in the world. That's why the Arizal says it's a mutter, a mitzvah, legalis, a chachma. It's permissible, and we're commanded, we're required to teach these teachings because now, we're trying to bring Mashiach, we're trying to make things happen, so we got to get the ball rolling. So this is absolutely crucial. There's nothing wrong with learning these teachings. They have to stay hidden. They're not supposed to stay hidden. Depends on the circumstance.
Why does it sound like the way the Gemara writes it that there isn't that it sounds like it's for all times instead of like at this time, that we're not allowed to learn it. Do you know what I'm saying?
The Gemara is referring to, in halacha language, there's chefza and gavra. There's the object and there's the person. Meaning, that's a good example. Like this is not a good example, but there's the object of the mitzvah. There's like a sukkah, right? You're required to eat in a sukkah. The mitzvah is not that a sukkah should be built, and that a sukkah should exist. The mitzvah is that I need to get into the sukkah and eat there. There's the person who's being commanded, and there's the object that is the subject of the mitzvah. That was actually, I don't know if that was a good way to explain it, but the Gemara is saying that it's not that the chefts is in the neshumi, that this part of Torah can't be revealed. That's not what it's saying. It's saying that there's the concealment is in the perspective in regards to the gavra, the person. That the person, if the person is not holding a level that they can receive this, then they can't receive it. Okay. Nowadays, we are on a much, much lower level than people were back then. Absolutely, that's not up for discussion. We are absolutely, very clearly not at any level compared to the Tanoim and the people of the Yidden of the times of the Gemara and the Mishnah. However, because we're in such a low state, we need these teachings. We absolutely need them. So the boundaries kind of fall away. Okay, so why do we need them now? So there's two aspects to the revelation of these teachings, to the proliferation of these teachings. One aspect is when there's an issue, we need to address the issue. And the issue was, at the times of the Alter Rebbe, the Mizrach Magid, was that Jews were at a standstill. They were at the heart monitor was almost out. So it was necessary to save the prince's life. Okay? There's another reason to reveal Chassidus. And it has nothing to do with saving lives. It has nothing to do with saving spiritual status of Jewish people. It's about preparing the world for Mashiach. As the Rambam says, Uboy says, man, that time, we're going to be Chachamim Gdolim, we'll know the hidden matters, the entire occupation of everyone in the world will be just to know Hashem. And he brings the ends off with the pasuk, Kimala Aris Deis Hashem, Umalas Deis Hashem, Kamayim Le'yom Mechasim, that the whole world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem like water covers the sea. When Mashiach comes, this is going to be the focus in life. We're going to be learning these teachings in a very vivid manner. This is what we're going to be occupied with. So clearly, it's not like it's supposed to stay hidden forever. So as a preparation for coming to Mashiach, we need to start the process. We need to start learning these teachings already now, even in Golus. And this is why there were two accusations. This is exactly why. This is what the Rebbe says. The first accusation was against, hey, why are you teaching Chassidus? And the Alter Rebbe defended it. He said, you got to save the prince's life. What happened was, the Baal Shem Tov was teaching Chassidus, the Mizrach Magid was teaching Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe came along and started teaching Chassidus in a completely new manner. He started teaching Chassidus Chabad. He made it accessible to the human mind. You can't take godliness and make it accessible to the human mind. But the Alter Rebbe did it. And he was teaching so openly, so broadly, so intensely, that in Shemayim they looked at this and said, whoa, that's a lot of drops of liquid going into this prince's mouth. This prince is fine. He looks fine to me. What is going on over here? This is more than what's necessary to save the life of the Jewish people. You're overdoing it. What's going on over here? So the accusation came back up. And he was arrested because the Alter was trying to pave the way for Mashiach. That's why he started going so all out. But at the end of the day, we have a clear psak from the Baal Shem Tov and the Mizrach Magid that the Alter was told, not only should you not stop, you should continue, and even more than you were teaching before. And since then, the teachings of Chassidus have flowed like milk and honey, and all we need is to just pick them up and learn them. And when we learn teachings of Chassidus, we become better people. We view the world differently. We view Hashem in a much better light. We view circumstances in our life in a much better light. And ultimately, this will help bring Mashiach and the Geula to the entire world. And we will have safety and peace and goodness forever and ever and ever. Have a good Tvach, and thank you for joining. If I can pause the recording here. Okay.